Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, she says that she now supports the full release of the Epstein files after seeing evidence of a potential child victim. In an interview, Lummis said her initial reaction to the files was, "I don't care," but now sees, quote, what the big deal is, and added that the members of Congress who have been pushing for the full release were not wrong. The senator said her perspective changed after reviewing unredacted files, which included references to a 9-year-old victim. Joining us now, CEO and co-founder of Axios, Jim Vandehei. Jim, I'm curious where this goes. There are still more files to be seen, and of course, the parts that were redacted. I think there are reporters and many people and victims who want accountability here and deserve it for sure. It seems every day something else comes out because this, again, 3 million in the last batch. So these stories, maybe they're breaking through?
They're definitely breaking through, and it's great that the senator now is calling for a full release of the document. But what the hell is she talking about? It's been long known that this creep was running a Ponzi scheme, exploiting not 1 or 2 underage girls, but like literally scores of underage girls. It was the worst kept secret in Palm Beach. So anyone who's living there was well aware of what was going on. The fact that Lutnick knew he was a creep, everybody knew that he was a creep, and yet they continued to do business with him or to have relationships with him. That isn't necessarily criminal. I'd say it's morally criminal. And I think that the more people see the report, the more pressure there is. I actually think this is an example where you're starting to see people stand up, some people in MAGA, some members of Congress, demanding that you release this and that more people pay a price for what was just a disgusting criminal enterprise that seemed to touch every single person who had power. I can't believe how many people had contact with this guy, had relationships with this guy after it was well known the type of person he was, after it was known that he was convicted of the grossest, most heinous types of crimes you possibly could. And so hopefully the pressure continues to mount. Eventually, maybe that full report does go out. It's complicated because some of it is just allegations, and just being with a creepy person who is immoral and who did the most atrocious things doesn't indict you as the individual. So I think that's what they're trying to protect as part of the process. But each of these members of Congress who are now going in and looking at this report and being able to see some of the unredacted material, it's turning their stomach, as it should. And I think they're going to continue to press for more and more to go out. You're starting to see people, including in the UK, pay a real price for this. And I think anybody who is super well aware of this, and certainly anybody who would engage in any of this behavior, should go to hell and probably should go to jail.
Jim, how do you account for that? You now have in the UK 3 members of the British government, including the former ambassador to the US, who have lost their jobs over this. You've got a prince who's been demoted. He's no longer a prince. And you've got the king being heckled twice in the course of the last week. You've got in Norway a former prime minister, an ambassador who's had to step down. You've got a crown princess who's under scrutiny as well. There just seems to be so much more cost being paid by individuals. There's no allegation, apart from Andrew, that Starmer could lose his job. He's never even met Epstein. There's no indication that these people were necessarily criminally involved, but there seems to be far more repercussions. And yet, here you have these documents all coming out with lots of people who have been named. You've got the titans of Silicon Valley, who are probably the most powerful people in the world at the moment, Bill Gates, Peter Thiel, who seem to be immune to any kind of repercussions from this.
Yeah, I don't get it. I usually am skeptical of conspiracy theories because I just don't think people are smart enough to carry out a conspiracy for a long period of time. But there's just nothing about this smells right. So many people with so many interactions with him long after it was well known what he was up to and the type of person he was and the activity that was happening at the 50 different houses that he seemed to have around the world where he entertained all of these people, and there should be a comeuppance, and hopefully the pressure from members of Congress continues. These survivors are heroes. Like, do you really think that some woman who is exploited by this creepy man wants to sit going before the camera day after day after day, begging people to have justice, begging people to believe them? Like, why the hell would they have to beg? You really think like 50 women are conspiring to make up a story just to embarrass your favorite political figure? No. So hopefully
that
this pressure will get things released. Hopefully we figure out who was engaged in criminal activity. Hopefully they're held to account. And the people who are just getting shamed, like, good.
David, it's pretty staggering that it took Senator Loomis seeing a 9-year-old in there. I guess 14 and 15 didn't outrage her enough. You're either appalled by what you see from Jeffrey Epstein and what you knew about him even before the files came out, or you're not.
Right.
And if you're not, then this was a political exercise from the beginning, and that's being teased out now. We're seeing the people who were authentic in their outrage about this, who actually wanted accountability for what was happening under Jeffrey Epstein and his friends that we're learning about. Or this was something you thought might damage Democrats, say, or get Bill Clinton or whatever it was. And then when you saw President Trump's name, for example, all over this, or Steve Bannon or whatever it is, you kind of walked away from it.
You know, I think of this analogy. Think of MAGA as you're driving down an interstate, and every few minutes there's an off-ramp. Something happens that gives you an off-ramp. And so I think this is what's happening person by person, senator by senator. It is either political calculation. Let's be cynical for a moment and say, well, they finally realized the tide might be turning, the steady decline, the overperformance of Democrats and off-year elections is telling them that Trump is not their meal ticket anymore. So there's the cynical analysis that says, I'm going to take this off-ramp. This off-ramp is I just saw something in the Epstein files that I can say is new, flipping on my blinker and off I go. But the bottom line is, most of MAGA just keeps on driving and keeps on driving with a lot of people who are all over the files. Let's talk about Steve Bannon for a minute. Steve Bannon, the close relationship with Epstein, this guy shouldn't be showing his face in the public square any longer, and yet he's just rolling forward with the same audience and his same grievances. And so, but if you look at it with a 30,000-foot view, every day another person takes the off-ramp. Every day, another senator or congressman on any given issue will put on that blinker and take the off-ramp. And over time, this is accumulating into the steady slide of Trump's support. But he's still got so much. MAGA is still, the great weight of it, even through the Epstein stuff, is still with him. And so, I do think we'll see more people taking these off-ramps, but it's slow. It's very, very slow.
In the fourth